Today I'm going to make an art journal page. I have a 5-step strategy journal art page that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to use a Gelli print, number 1. I'm going to use collage, number 2. Number 3, I want to use some sea animals and bubbles. And number 4, I'm going to use some mixed media like paint, texture paste, gold, and distress oxide ink. And then number 5, I'm going to use a frame. So this book that I have, it's actually a calendar that my husband brought home from work, and it's just got some advertising for the company on here, but it does have some really cool pages. Like, it's got all these grid pages in the back, it's got some lined journal type pages, and then of course it's got the calendar part in the front. So I didn't want to use it as an actual calendar, so instead I decided I would see how I like maybe using this as an art journal page, or somewhere where I can kind of put collections of my favorite gel prints and just kind of work a little bit more mixed media and collage. I'm not very comfortable with collage at this point in my art journey, so the Gelli printing I'm loving. I'm having a really good time with what I'm making from my Gelli prints, and I don't know what to do with all of them, so I thought this would be kind of a cool idea to make a book that I can add my Gelli prints to, and then I can also work on like putting in different types of media that I have already and I need to use. So at this point I'm just putting some gesso on the paper. This is very thin paper. It's almost like copy paper, but maybe, I don't know, it feels like it's even thinner. So I'm hoping that by putting the gesso down, it's going to give it a little more, I guess, where it can handle some water and some paint. And what did happen, because this paper is so thin, is the edges of it, as it was drying, the edges did start curling up. And the more, I'd say, medium that I put down after it was dry, it would curl up on the edges. But all in all, I don't think it's a bad use. What I might do for my next one, if I'm going to work in this book, is glue maybe collage 2 of the pages together and then do the gesso on top. So I'm just kind of playing around with this and seeing if I like this even. I would prefer to use maybe like a mixed media paper or a watercolor paper, just with all of the, I guess, paint and different things that I like putting down in texture paste and everything. So this is kind of an experiment journal for me. And also I wanted to see, because I'm not very comfortable or familiar with doing collage, I wanted to use this as a practice session. So I wasn't really committed to this book. I wasn't really committed to even this page. I really did like the Gelli print that I'm using as my inspiration, which I'll show you in a little bit, but it's basically my last Gelli print from my play session. It was the one that kind of looks like underwater coral, and I think it was Yolanda was watching my video, and she'd mentioned it would look cool as an underwater scene, and I thought maybe I'll just turn that into like an art journal page and see what it looks like if I were to kind of add to it. So my idea with this part of the page is just to put some paint down and almost extend what I was doing on the gel print. The gel print has more of almost like the coral look to it, and then this outer side is going to be more just like underwater scene. So maybe like the depths of the ocean or something. So I'm kind of building it up, knowing that in the center is where I'm going to be putting my gel print. And so this whole page is going to be centered around my gel print. I do dry my layers with my hair dryer in between, just on the lowest heat setting, just so that I can keep working. So this is the gel print that I had printed onto rice paper, and I'm just tearing off as much of the edge, the white edge or rice paper showing edge as I could, just to get it to kind of look more like it's gonna fit into the scene here. these edges were really thin, so it was a little hard to get all of that thin rice paper torn off, but I did get it. Now I want to make my little sea creatures. I'm going rudimentary at this point because number one, I knew that a page like this was going to take a lot of time. This isn't my main way art form, I guess, and I normally do card making, so this is kind of stretching myself a little bit in the art world, so I needed to start somewhere. So I'm going to do these stamped sea creatures, and then I'm going to color them in with some of my the markers that I was using, the acrylic paint markers, and this is on rice paper, and I'm using my VersaFine Onyx black ink, and then just kind of stamping out all the images that I think I'll want to cut out onto my gel print. So my markers, I figured they were going to bleed through the rice paper because they did when I jelly printed with them. So I am putting a piece of paper down, just a scrap piece, to catch anything that would be leaking to the other side. I was able to blend some of these colors out just a little bit, made a little bit of an orange on the octopus here, and then for a lot of the other creatures, I just used a couple of colors and did some pretty basic coloring, nothing too complicated. But at this point, I really just wanted to see what this page was if it was gonna come together, or if I was going to scrap this whole page altogether. So I'm sure many of you, when you're doing art journal type pages, you're not sure of it in the beginning and maybe even as it's happening, but I always have to trust the process and just get through it, because then typically I'll like it once I see it completely finished. I messed up one of my clownfish. I couldn't remember where the black went, so I had to pull up a picture of it and realized that they only had thin black stripes. So that one that I messed up on, I just used as a tester cutout to see how it would work with my collage medium. And I did fussy cut out all of these little sea creatures. It took a while, so I didn't bore you with watching me cut out every single one of them, but I tried to go as close to the border as I could on all of them. The jellyfish, I didn't worry about what was in between their little tentacles, and then the little fish, I just kind of cut those out as a group. Here I'm trying to figure out where I want my gel print on the page and kind of what the composition is that I'm going for. I wasn't ready to glue my gel print down just yet, so I decided to just glue all my little creatures down first. The gel, or the collage medium that I'm using, is from Ranger. It's just a matte collage medium. With the rice paper, I was not sure if it was going to make the white of, the background blend in with the color of the background of the gel print. It didn't work really well, so it started to blend in just a little bit, so it didn't go very. I think tissue paper would have blended in a little bit better than how the rice paper is doing. I'm using my little foam brush after my regular brush to even out some of those paint lines, the paintbrush lines. Now my little clownfish, his little white part blended in just fine. So hey, I guess I could have gone over him with some white gel pen, but I didn't think to do that. Now I'm going to work on the journal part of my page here. Well, it's not really a journal because I'm not writing in it, but I guess the art part. So I'm putting down some of the golden paints. These are similar colors that I used on my gel print, and I've got this stencil that looked like bubbles to me, kind of looked like maybe paint splatters, but to me it could look like bubbles. It didn't really show up on my page here as well as I had hoped that it would, so I'm going to go over this later with a texture paste instead. The black, I was kind of trying to get that center part black because on my gel print it has black in the center, so I wanted it to make it look like it belonged. I am using water on my paintbrush to get the paint to move a little bit more. And also I wanted some lighter and darker areas. I've got the teal color at the top here, and I'm mixing that with some white. So I'm just painting right over where I had done the little bit of stenciling, just because you couldn't really see it anyway. The color maybe blended in too much. So now I'm going to make it look more like the top of the ocean where the water would be lighter, and then the darker sides is as you're getting into the deeper part of the ocean will be on the bottom. So on my jelly print where I had done my decoupaging or collaging, I had those little fish that had the white background. I didn't like that you could see that white and it didn't blend in with the background, so I'm going to use just a little bit of blue paint and try to make those look like they belong in that area and they're in the water. This was a little tricky because this paint with the white, it wasn't very transparent, it was more opaque, so those little fish started getting lost a little bit. Then that blue was a little bit too bright and it didn't match what I had already done on my jelly print, so I'm going in with the same blue color I had made my jelly print with, just to blend it out a little bit. So being that I don't really do art journal pages, or I've seen so many different phrases for like collaging on paper. So there's junk journaling, but I think that's more like ephemera and kind of like a scrapbook meets, I don't know. I'm still kind of collecting my thoughts on what junk journaling is. So yeah, I don't know if this falls into that category. I feel like it doesn't. And then there's art journals. That's when you're painting. So I feel like this one definitely falls into the art journal. Doesn't fall into scrapbooking because there's no pictures involved. But the journal part is usually with words, and this doesn't have words. So I don't know what this is. It's just me having fun, collage, and testing out different things that I don't know if I like or don't like. So I'm using this page as a lesson for myself to see how different mediums work together. I've done a lot of testing on my Gelli plate, and I kind of have an idea of what I do and don't like on Gelli plate printing. And then I was watching, I don't know if any of you have heard of Vilna Furstenberg. She's been around for a while on YouTube, but she kind of got off of YouTube because now she sells classes, so you can buy her classes to get her inspiration. But she does, I guess it's called, hers is called art journaling, and she does art journaling meets, I guess, scrapbooking, because she does do pictures in hers, but more lately she's been doing more just focused on art journaling, where she puts a word or some kind of a title, and then she kind of paints in words. They're not always like legible or, you know, very legible. She, on purpose, I think she uses the words as more like doodles on the page, and it looks really cool. So I thought that was kind of in the back of my mind as I was making this page, was kind of thinking of that style where she put paint down, she'll spray it out with water, she'll let the paint colors blend together, and then she'll put something on top of it. So for her, she usually does like, she has florals that she makes out of watercolor paper, and then she scans them in, and then she'll cut them out on her silhouette on sticker paper, and then she'll stick those into her art journal. So she's got some really cool ideas, and her pages are always so beautiful and inspirational. So if you've never checked her out, I'll link Vilna's, the one video that I was watching where she actually used her Gelli plate, and she was using her Gelli plate to print into her homemade journal, like a handmade journal that she had made. And she called it color blocking. So she was kind of blocking in different colors, and it was really cool to see her process. I don't think I mean, I'm sure people do make gel prints like that, but for me, I usually build up everything on my gel plate, pull my print, and it's kind of my print. So what she was doing, I thought looked really kind of fluid and kind of fun. So I might try something like that from one of my next pages, just to see what, you know, different ways I can learn how to use my mediums and the gel plate, and just find fun ways of incorporating that, and just, I don't know, enjoying the art process. So I've been enjoying this. My texture paste was really dry, so I don't think I've used it in a year, but I was stubborn and I was going to use it anyway. So I used this old gift card that I had, and that's what I used to spread it on my stencil, over my stencil. And the more I used of the texture paste, the more I got it to do what I wanted. So it was, and it worked fine because it ended up drying normal. And the harder part was working on this really thin stencil, just because this texture paste was already so dried out. So I'll probably have to get myself some more texture paste if I want to continue this type of design or stenciling on my pages. But it really does add a nice effect. So this part up here, I was trying to go for like the watery, you know, like when you're looking up at a water in the ocean, it kind of has those little sun, I don't know what you call them, but that's what I was going for up here. And then of course the white bubbly looking things, I was going for bubbles in the water. They were a little bit too stark white for me, or they didn't look quite right. So I did want to put some paint over all of them to make them blend in with the background a little bit more. Then I realized they blended in a little bit too much, and they didn't have too much separation. So I will go back over them with some white again, but it'll be more of a white that blends in with the ocean scene more than what the texture paste alone was doing. This is Liquitex, so I have these acrylic inks that I just kind of poured out just to see. Again, I'm trying mixed media. I'm trying to incorporate different mediums that I have, just to see how they work together, if some of them don't work well together. So that's kind of what I'm testing out here. I'm trying to see how fluid these Liquitex paints are compared to the fluid golden paints, and they're pretty opaque actually, so they're definitely a little bit more opaque than I was thinking that these Liquitex would be. I feel like the golden paints are a little more transparent, I guess. Especially when you do add a little bit of water to them, they're definitely more transparent. So as I'm going along, and of course I'm making a nice big mess of wherever I'm putting this paint, I still want that black to show through, so I have a baby wipe and I'm just wiping around to the areas that I want to keep the black paint showing. And here I'm going back in with a little bit more white, just to capture the look of the bubbles. For another mixed media, I am adding this Liquitex Gold. So the same brand paint, but this is just the gold, the copper, and the silver paints in this set. And I'm just going to use the gold. Here I'm wanting to kind of mimic the sunshine coming through the top of the water. So that was my goal with adding the gold up at the top here. Now I'm ready to add my gel print to the page. Finally, I think I'm ready to commit. And so I'm just putting more of that matte collage medium down. And then I'll figure out how high up I want this, because I am still trying to make it fit with the black areas. And then I'm just going to put this collage medium over the entire top, and then I'm going to go over the entire page with this collage medium, just to get it all kind of like the same layer and look like it all goes together. So here's where I decided I need a little something to tie this together. It did kind of make it look like the jelly print was just kind of floating in the middle of this ocean scene. So to make it look like it maybe belonged a little bit more, I added a frame. Here's how I'm mitering my corners. I just hold each of the corners up to each other and then just cut across both of them, and that gives me some pretty smooth mitered corners that will fit together nicely. So I'll do that to my four edges, or all of my corners, and then I'm going to use an embossing folder, a 3D embossing folder from Sizzix, just to give me a wood look to these frame pieces. Now, the longer pieces didn't really fit in my embossing folder, so I flipped it and did a little bit of embossing on the other side. So for these longer pieces, you'll see as I'm adding the color to them, one edge of it just looks like it just doesn't quite belong. But after they were all distressed and everything, I don't think it was that noticeable. So the first step is I took some light brown paint, acrylic paint, and filled in all of my little pieces just to get into the grooves with that paint. Then I'm taking my ground espresso distress ink and just using that to rub over all of the raised areas. And I'm rubbing it along the edges as well. And then I've got some Rusty Hinge Distress Oxide ink. This is to give it a little more aging. So I did that to all 4 of my pieces, just to give it some additional layering of the brown. Then I wanted to add a little bit of whitewash. So this is a acrylic paint that's kind of like a whitewash effect. So I'm just kind of dry brushing this on each of my little frame pieces. I'm trying to just be gentle with how much I'm putting down because I still want the brown to show through. This last one here, I went a little heavy-handed with the white and ended up adding more than I really wanted. So I came back in with my distress ink and got my whitewash on my pad, but it came off, so it was okay. But then I went back over it again just to give it the dimension of the brown on the top of these little frame pieces. I guess the look that I was going for was weathered wood for under the sea. Then I was lining them up around my image here in the middle just to see if the frame still fits. Some of the edges, some of the little fish and some of the little sea things will be hidden from this by having the frame over it. But I'm okay with that because most of the scene will show through. I'm just using some of my tacky tape or tacky glue to glue these pieces down. I decided not to use the collage medium for these. This is where it gets a little tricky, making sure my frame closed. And it did not. So I didn't glue that last piece down tight just yet. I just laid it down gently. So I was able to move it around until I figured out where that bottom piece needed to go. And then I was able to move that top piece to match. So it wasn't lining up. So I took it off completely and just moved it over to where it would line up. in the end, I feel like I got it to line up pretty well. So that does it for my art page. I think I shouldn't call it a journal page because I don't have any words, but my goal is to kind of use this as a bouncing off point to see what I might make next and maybe include some journaling or some words, something. So I'm just trying to, see what's inspiring me at the moment. And right now I really was inspired by this under the sea look, and I think it turned out really cool. I really do like how the frame makes that center jelly print just pop out of the background, but it also kind of looks like it goes with it, and it has the bubbles and everything. So I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I would definitely play around with this idea even a little bit more with my jelly prints. So hopefully this is something that is inspiring for you or gives you some ideas on how to use your jelly prints in projects. So let me know what you're working on in the comments. I hope to hear from you, and I will see you in the next video. Happy crafting!